Welcome to Beverly Unitarian Church. My name is David Schwartz, and I'm the minister here at Beverly Unitarian, and it is a pleasure to be with you this morning. We welcome all people here, every color of the rainbow, from every place on earth. Whatever your past or your present is like, we invite you to walk into the future with us. Here, we celebrate a diversity of beliefs, striving always to make room for more. And like other Unitarian Universalist congregations, we affirm certain principles, which you can find on our website, online. Search for the 7 Principles, Unitarian Universalism. We especially welcome visitors, and in this time of virtual church, if you are joining us online for the first time or one of the first times, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I'm glad that you're here with us. I hope if you're watching live with us, you'll say hello in the chat, or stick around for our Zoom coffee hour after the service this morning. Even though we're not gathering in person, there's still a lot going on around the congregation. If you have an announcement that you want to get out to the congregation, send it to the office, send it to Mary, and we'll get it into the email, into the weekly email. Or toss it into the chat right now and give folks a heads up about what's going on. I try sometimes different ways to explain to people what Unitarian Universalism is. And I say things like, what unites us is shared values, not shared beliefs, not a unanimity of thought, right? I say, where a church where the plan is to unite your head and your heart and your hands and your spirit without asking you to leave some part of yourself behind. I say, we're here, we're gathered together, even through a screen, for the same purpose, the same mission, which is to grow our spirits and to help serve the world, help heal the world. My friend and colleague, the Reverend Jen Crow, puts our shared purpose like this. She says, we are rooted in the idea that religion is about a way of life, not a set of ideas. The spiritual life is a journey, not a confession. We see people struggling against a shallow, frantic world, people struggling with forgetfulness about who they really are, who they want to be. We see people struggling with a feeling and a fear of being pulled apart. You know that right now. She says, we believe the primary spiritual problem, one of the great spiritual problems of our time and place, is disconnection. She wrote this like 20 years ago. It is still just as sharp. Other people, other faiths sometimes characterize the primary spiritual problem as sin, a corrupt inner core, tempting outside influences, things that draw us toward evil. We don't argue about this stuff with them. We just recognize that our particular gift is helping to save each other from disconnection. Our universalist heritage is a grounding in unconditional love. You don't have to do anything or be anything or earn your way into the fullness of being human and held in the love of this community. Our humanist history of believing in the innate potential of every individual combines to say you are beloved exactly as you are, and beloved as you journey into becoming who you feel called to be. Our gift is our transcendentalist roots that invite every one of us to develop an authentic and awake relationship to the universe. And that's what led us to these understandings. And so here we are, unavoidably separated right now, and nonetheless committed to being together, connected, holding each other in love. One old preacher said, we're members of one body. We gather to make each other's conditions our own. We rejoice together. We mourn together. We labor together. We suffer together. Members of the same body. And in our church building or in our living rooms, in times of hope and times of uncertainty, and when things are easy and when things are hard, we are in it together. Will you join me in the words of our covenant? Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. I invite you to greet each other warmly in the chat box, remembering that the chat is public, but that shouldn't stop you from sending out a great big hello to everyone gathered this morning. It's good to be with you. Yeah, don't knock the tripod over, Pilot. Oh, good dog. Oh. Pilot, it's story time. You ready for a story, buddy? Yeah. Good dog. Pilot, your story this week? And then it's spring. I know, it's a good book. And what? Oh, you want to see the picture? Sorry. Is that better? That's good. And then it's spring. First, you have brown. All around, you have brown. Then, there are seeds. Look, Pilot, there's a dog. And a wish for rain. And then it rains. And it is still brown, but a very hopeful, possible sort of brown. And is that a little green? No, it's just brown. Sort of brown. Then it's a week. It's still very brown. And you worry about those little seeds. And if maybe it was the birds? Yeah, maybe it was the birds. There you go. Or if maybe it was the bears and all that stomping, because bears can't read signs that say things like, please do not stomp here. There are seeds and they are trying. Bears are not good at following directions. And then it is one more week. Not much looks different. This book has been going on a long time, and it's still just very, very brown. And the brown, still brown, has a greenish hum that you can only hear if you put your ear to the ground and close your eyes. Things are moving below the surface. And then it is one more week. How green is this? This is zero green. And a sunny day. That sunny day that happens right after a rainy day. And you walk outside to check on all that brown. And you take your dog with you. But the brown isn't around. And now you have green. All around, you have green. And there they are, off into the green. Waiting for spring feels like this. It snowed this week. Again, it snowed, which is ridiculous. Why is it snowing in the middle of April? And why, if it is snowing, is it not snowing better and sticking around that we could at least go sledding, if we could even leave our houses? It takes a long time for spring to come. It's brown a long, long time. And it feels that way too, maybe, if you're stuck in your house. If you've just heard that school is not going to be back in session this year, and you're going to be home for a lot longer than you expect, and your grown-ups are going to be home with you for a lot longer than you expect, trying to figure this out, trying to figure out how you're all going to do it. Things move slowly, and it's easy to lose hope and lose patience. It's easy, unless you're Pilot, who is apparently happy about everything all the time, it's easy to get grumpy. But one day, it will be spring. One day, bit by bit, we'll go back out again. One day, school will start up again. One day, your parents, your grown-ups won't be the only company that you have in person. One day, it's coming. It will be spring again. Yeah, maybe it was the birds. There you go. Or if maybe it was the bears and all that stomping, because bears can't read signs that say things like, please do not stomp here. There are seeds and they are trying. Bears are not good at following directions. And then it is one more week. Not much looks different. This book has been going on a long time, and it's still just very, very brown. And the brown, still brown, has a greenish hum that you can only hear if you put your ear to the ground and close your eyes. Things are moving below the surface. And then it is one more week. How green is this? This is zero green. And a sunny day. That sunny day that happens right after a rainy day. And you walk outside to check on all that brown. And you take your dog with you. But the brown isn't around. And now you have green. All around, you have green. And there they are, off into the green. Waiting for spring feels like this. It snowed this week. Again, it snowed, which is ridiculous. Why is it snowing in the middle of April? And why, if it is snowing, is it not snowing better and sticking around that we could at least go sledding, if we could even leave our houses? It takes a long time for spring to come. It's brown a long, long time. And it feels that way too, maybe, if you're stuck in your house. If you've just heard that school is not going to be back in session this year, and you're going to be home for a lot longer than you expect, and your grown-ups are going to be home with you for a lot longer than you expect, trying to figure this out, trying to figure out how you're all going to do it. Things move slowly, and it's easy to lose hope and lose patience. It's easy, unless you're Pilot, who is apparently happy about everything all the time, it's easy to get grumpy. But one day, it will be spring. One day, bit by bit, we'll go back out again. One day, school will start up again. One day, your parents, your grown-ups won't be the only company that you have in person. One day, it's coming. It will be spring again. Our community shares the joys and the sorrows that we carry with each other, so that we don't have to move through this world alone, so that we don't have to do it all ourselves, so that we can take off what other masks we wear to face the world and be just held in the love and support, the embrace of this community. I light our first candle this morning for the ones that we worry over, for the ones who are sick and the ones who are caring for them. I light a candle for those who we worry over, for everyone struggling with financial uncertainty and insecurity. Light a candle for those who are struggling in isolation, who feel more alone than you have before, whose routines and lives are disrupted. I light a candle for parents and kids, for anyone who is a caregiver, whether that's your children or a spouse or your own parents. This is really hard. We're with you. I light a candle to let go of our expectations, to let go of the need to do, to let go of some expectation you might have to use this time to improve and learn a new skill. Let go of the idea that you have to be perpetually strong. Let go just for a moment, as long as this candle burns, of needing to be brave. It's okay if your courage fails sometimes. This is why we're all in it together, so you don't have to carry it all by yourself. Those days will come and come back again. And I light a candle for all those joys and sorrows unspoken. A candle of hope and of determination. A candle that in the days to come we be and remain a people of compassion, of solidarity and determination. An old world and an old way of living is passing away before us. So this final candle is a candle of hope, that we do not forget what this pandemic makes plain, that we are in it together, that our measurement is how well the least of us are doing, that the radical inequality of this world is a choice, not an inevitability, a candle of hope that the world as it will be is not the world as it has been. I invite you now to add in the chat box, remembering it's public, the names of anyone you wish to lift up in the love of the community, to add the joys and the sorrows on your heart this morning. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, O my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, O my soul. Will you sing with me? Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, O my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, O my soul. Will you take a breath with me? and another. And come back to where you are. Our words for meditation are from Mark Bellatini. He writes this: "One day, I pray, in clear and clean windows, reflections of families at supper, not mouths open in fear. One day, I pray, in wide, hot streets, clean air, not belching oily smoke. One day, I pray, on warm spring nights, the sound of crickets, not wailing or gunshots. One day, I pray, in human hearts, a prayer of thanksgiving for peace that has lasted 1,000 years. Not a truce, mind you, but an era of peace, full and just and rich. May our children live to see such a world. Oh, love, may all children live. What indeed can we do? We can breathe. We can feel heartache. We can breathe. We can be loyal to spring. We can breathe. We can remember the difference between what we can do before we have thought and what we can do after we've thought. We can breathe. We can remember the way our feelings can serve our mind. We can breathe. We can refuse to sign our lives over into the service of panic or hand-wringing self-righteousness. We can breathe. We can get clear on our most basic values. We can breathe. Blessed are you, breath, for you are the spirit that sustains me in difficult days. Will you take a breath with me? And another. Breathe with me. Breathe with me. Breathe with me, oh my soul. Breathe with me. Breathe with me. Breathe with me, oh my soul. Amen. 130 miles south and west of Minneapolis is the little town of Hanska, Minnesota, population 402. And some years ago, I drove out there to preach at the Nora Unitarian Universalist Church. In 1881, 20 years before the town was even incorporated, Nora Free Christian Church, a Unitarian church, was founded there in what was a devoutly conservative Norwegian Lutheran immigrant corner of that state. Nora was a little white church standing up on a hill surrounded on all sides by farm fields that just stretched all the way out to the horizon. It's a lovely little church, and in back at the top of the hill, spilling over, is the church graveyard. Maybe 100 headstones, smooth, polished dark granite and old pitted white marble. There was a wildness to the place on the Sunday that I was there in the early spring. It was a little above freezing and the wind was blowing strong. These are prairies where the wind blows. And the church had put a wind turbine up a few years back and the blades were moving too fast to see. The solitude was immense. I get there early. I like to get to church early, and no living thing moved in that gray, clouded morning landscape. No person or animal or bird, nothing but me among the gravestones of this old Unitarian church and the sound of my breath carried away on the wind. The congregation was founded in 1881, split off from the local Norwegian Lutheran Church after bitter disputes over theology, fights over who was allowed to be buried in the Lutheran graveyard, and what you had to believe before you died in order to be buried there afterwards. The congregation affiliated with the American Unitarian Association, as it was called then, and named themselves Nora, meaning Norwegian, Nora Free Christian Church. Free, that is, from any authority who told them what to believe and how to worship. And in those early years, theology was a bitter split. In this rural Norwegian immigrant community, families and friends split apart when churches split. Members thrived over time, though. And they founded the first secular community center. They founded the town library. I saw an old photo of all the members and families of this little church a century ago, spread out across the broad lawn in front. 200 people, maybe. What kept that church together, what united those people, were the commitments that they made to each other, the promises, the covenant, the sacred promises they had made to each other and to themselves. First, they said to themselves, I am committing to live my life in the integrity of what I believe. One at a time, some after years, and some early on said, I can't speak words and give support to a faith that I don't believe in, that excludes the people I love. I'm unwilling to attend a church any longer that says not all people are worthy. I'm unwilling to say a creed I don't believe in anymore. And for many of those churchgoers out on the prairie 140 years ago, like many of us, maybe that sense came early in life. And for many of them, like for many of us, it may have been a long lifetime of passing before they could speak out loud the doubts and hopes they'd held for decades. What bound that church together was first the promise of each person to themselves and to the holy as they understood it, that they would live an undivided life, that they would bind themselves together to witness the births and bury the dead, to turn week after week again toward the holy, and to do it with the full integrity of heart and mind and soul, and leaving none of that Trinity, compassion and intellect and deep self apart from the other promise of an undivided life. This is not an easy thing. It would have been a lot easier for those early members to stay Lutheran, to not speak out, to not demand a parish free of the theology of their deeply conservative brethren. It would have been simpler, maybe, for them just to look the other way when a friend, when a loved one couldn't be buried in that church's graveyard. The undivided life is not an easy path. It's not like money in it, you know? Nor is there even happiness all the time. The undivided life is not a blissful life. It's a rootedness in the world as it is, though. It's a facing of reality, which includes the ugliness and the suffering of the world. The Sufi poet, the mystic Rumi, wrote 9 centuries ago, this being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who sweeps violently through your house, empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. Maybe they're cleaning you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing, invite them in, be grateful for whoever comes. Each of them is a guide, each of them as a guide. The trick of living is not to flee this world, but to live into it boldly. That's the life we're invited into in this congregation, to practice living together. It's the destination that we've promised ourselves to. That's the first promise. That's the first covenant. Spoken or unspoken, it was the covenant of that little church all those miles away to the west. Remembered or forgotten, it is the covenant of the group that founded this congregation. The Universalists who gathered in Chicago in the 1880s and called one of the first women ministers in the city. That's us. That's our roots. That's the promise of the people who gathered in a basement of a house down here in Beverly in the 1940s, committing themselves to form a Unitarian fellowship in a wood-paneled basement. The promise of homecoming to our own true life, to who we are and who we're called into being. The promise that our lives can be transformed, that the experience of being in the world can be transformed, that we're going home to a place, our truest self, together in community. That promise is not just for the elect. It is not just for the well-off or the well-educated. This invitation into a way of living is not just for people who read the New York Times, though y'all are welcome too. It's not just for people who have already solved all the problems in their life. I haven't met that person yet. This invitation into living, this invitation into community, this way of doing life through doing congregation, this is for us. This is for everyone. It meets us where we are. It says, take my hand, walk with me, come on together. We can't grow our souls on our own. It takes community. You can't lower your guard and remove your mask in theory. It has to be embodied, real. We practice this. It takes practice. Listening and silence and reflection and time and space. This is practice. Saying hello to the little person, the little kid who walks past you on a Sunday morning, 8 decades older than them. That's part of what it is. Putting together an open mic night and having people show up to sing silly songs, that's practice. Prayer is practice. Tears are practice. That's what we're here doing together. Someone told me once, it's like this place isn't a church. It's where you come to learn how to be. And I want to say, yeah, that's what church is. That's what church should be. That's what we are at our best. All of us, we're a journey church. We're a crew together on these little boats of our lives, charting our way through as best we can together. Mary Oliver, the poet, talks about the start of these journeys that lead us here, that bring us together. She says, one day, you finally knew what you had to do. And you began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. But little by little, you left the voices behind, and the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. She describes the start of the spiritual journey. She describes what it feels like for some of us, for many of us maybe, to start down that path. But it's not the whole story, because her poetry is so lonely and heroic, setting out on your own, all by yourself into the unknown. What she doesn't say is that as you go deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save, which is your own, you're joined on that road by fellow travelers. Whole hosts of people walking with you, walking together. Those gathered here this morning, together apart, are with you. Traveling companions gathered across centuries. Rumi, centuries ago. Norwegian immigrants praying in that little Unitarian church in Hanska. You are not alone. You are well companioned. Even if you're by yourself right now. We're struggling against isolation. And this was true even before we all had to stay at home. We're struggling against isolation, against fragmentation, and we're working to be whole, to be present, to be awake, working to resist the seductiveness of things and the illusion of separateness. We're standing against that. We're standing together, even when we're separated. The invitation is to walk this path together, to journey together, each for the other, to hold our hands and to guide our feet while we run this race. Will you sing with me? Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain. Join with me while I run this race. Join with me while I run this race. Join with me while we run this race, for we don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain. It's times like these that churches are made for. It's times like these that this congregation is for. When things are difficult and we're struggling, that's exactly why we gather together. In some ways, it's a strange time to kick off an annual pledge campaign when things are uncertain. But this is exactly the moment when we step up to help one another. This year, as we invite you to make your commitment for giving in the year ahead, to make a pledge of support for the church year that begins July 1st and goes through the 12 months that follow, we know that some folks in the congregation are struggling with financial uncertainty, with employment uncertainty. And the ask and the invitation is not to give until it hurts and not to feel even a little bit bad about not giving if that's not possible financially. You're not part of this community because of the money you paid for membership. This is a church, not a club. And this is a time to help each other out. If you are financially secure, if your job is comfortable, if your situation hasn't changed, I want to make a special invitation for you to step up this year and help cover the pledges of the people who can't. We all do better when we all do better, and we all chip in to keep this place going. There's no one donor in the congregation who pays for 90% of stuff and the rest of us just toss in a few bucks. We all do what we can. So if this is a year when you are secure, if this is a year when your stimulus check is not a check that you need for your own budget, I want to invite you to give generously and to support the folks who can't do that this year. This is how we make a congregation. The folks stepping up, step up, and people who can't, and that's okay. We face that honestly, forthrightly, without shame or guilt about it. You belong here, period. In a time when the world is hurting, we gather together. In a time of separation, we come here to unite ourselves in common cause and common fellowship and common mission. I invite you to make your pledge commitment this year. You'll see in the next few weeks more communication coming out from the Finance Committee, all about how the budget works, how pledging works, the logistics of how to do this and how to fulfill it. But I want to encourage you this morning, before you even leave and go on to coffee hour, I want to invite you to give as generously as you're able to support the life of this congregation that continues without stopping, even as we're separated. We're all in it together.